Every day is a blessing, the time we spend together. All we can do is promote change, 24 hours better.
I know it's been a minute since we've actually, gotten back to the podcast, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. But if you know me, you know all the details. But we're gonna get started back up again. We're gonna roll into this one. This one I have a special guest, and I know I say a special guest every time because they are special. They are actually special. They come from a multitude of different backgrounds and ideologies and principles and drives and factors and focus. And this one is no different. This one is right up there with the other ones that I am blessed to be, sitting in council with Dr. Smith. Now, one thing about Dr. Smith, because we have a little bit of a pre-introduction, and I'm going to say Mr. sometimes and Sir, but Dr. Smith is a founder of the Chronic Condition Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I looked over the bio, talking a little bit about his drive for healing and solving these problems and looking at them not just at a surface level of prescribing something out, but going deeper and diving into all the different ways to actually prevent these things, heal these things, and push people through to the other side and getting better. And I want to tap into a little bit of that mindset. What actually happened, what actually goes on in his mind, and the rewards that he feels in the day, and the benefits that he helps people out. So, Dr. Smith, thank you very much for joining me, taking a little bit of time out of your day that I'm sure you could be out here, pulling the S behind the chest and saving the rest of the world, but you're sitting here talking to me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
We don't know that yet. Give me time. No, I really do like hearing.
I'm optimistic.
That's a good trait for a doctor. I guess you can. That's a good trait. So what is it about this center and the things that you do there? What goes on and just give me a rundown of what goes on at this center.
We try to figure out the root causes of what's going on with people's health, as opposed to the more common approach, which is a superficial, glossy veneer of what they really need. So when you go to see your family doctor or you go see like a primary care physician, by the time you walk in the door, your treatment plan has been predetermined by you don't even have a chance to even open your mouth. They already have a set plan for you and for your health. And it's usually designed by an actuary that works for the insurance company who's never met you. He's never read your chart. He's never looked at your labs or your x-rays or did an exam or anything. But he's the one that's calling the shots for you based on an algorithm of what they find is the cheapest way possible to uh, fix this problem or just quell some symptoms so they don't get sued. So the insurance companies, one thing that people need to understand is they don't care about your health. They don't care about you and your problems. All they are is beholden to their shareholders. So they want to do just enough not to get sued, and that's it. And that's why we have this system of healthcare in this country that is very, very superficial, and it doesn't really dig very deep. And my practice focuses exactly the opposite. It focuses on what is the hidden root cause that could be driving these problems, whether it's thyroid problems or gut problems or brain or hormonal issues or immune system issues. We got to figure out what the root cause is.
It's very interesting that you said that, and to give a little bit of insight, it seems very, like, again, this is weird. This is new information coming from me, or coming to me, that if the insurance company controls that information, They also control the premiums. If they
Yes.
control the outline, then why is, medical support, so expensive if they're already controlling that flow? That right there kind of baffles my mind, because there's a lot of people in the world today that don't go see you because of that barricade, or that barrier that the insurance is providing or not providing based upon this knowledge. That's a scary idea, to have possibly an ailment grow and fester with, with lack of attention, when they could be addressed, or maybe even corrected.
Well, one thing that I've discovered is that nobody develops a problem just because. There's no such thing as I have high blood pressure just because, or I have cancer just because, or some other kind of a chronic illness. I want to figure out what the root cause is that's driving that process. That's my number one priority. My number one priority is not what's in the best interest of the shareholders of the company, like Blue Cross Blue Shield or United or Cigna or Aetna. These massive companies, they don't care about you and they don't care about your medical problems. They're just responsible to the shareholders. That's it. And so that's the priority. That's a harsh reality. And the other thing is that when you don't get the results that you really want from them, they usually ship you off to a specialist. And the specialist, again, tries their best using the tools that they have, which usually comes in the form of a drug. But their main focus is on the suppression of symptoms and not focusing on the root causes of what's going on. So, for example, if you have high blood pressure, they'll give you a drug to lower that blood pressure. If you have some hormonal issues, let's say that your sex hormones are off, if you're a female that wants to get pregnant and start a family and you can't conceive a child, they will give you estrogens or progesterone or whatever the labs say, just to the point where they can get your labs back to quote unquote normal, but they never figure out what causes the hormones to go out of whack in the first place. That's where functional medicine comes in. Functional medicine is a personalized, patient-centered approach to healthcare. So rather than chasing the symptoms with a drug, the goal of functional medicine is why. Why do you have these problems? What are the factors that go into causing problems with uh, abnormal levels of hormone or abnormal levels of high blood pressure or whatever? So we got to figure out what those are, and then bring that down through natural means, as opposed to using drugs or whatever. I'm not anti-drug, I'm not anti-physician. I believe that there's a time and a place for all healing. But I also believe that we as a people are over-medicated. And so we tend to lean on pharmaceuticals to clean up the mess after that, while ignoring our diet, ignoring our level of hydration or our exercise or stress management, making sure that our nervous system and joints and posture are corrected through natural things like chiropractic care, or focusing on I mentioned stress management. Uh, I know that, sleep, making sure that you're getting plenty of sleep. When's the last time you went to a family doctor and he asked you about your nutrition and about your levels of sleep? They only have about 7 minutes of time to get all the information out of you and then move on to the next person. And so there's a lot of problems in our healthcare system today. Part of it is politics, part of it is money, part of it is tradition, but part of it is because of the insurance industry and the influence of insurance-based care on people.
So you mentioned earlier about the different types of insurance companies and the things that were going on and what they do and how they respond and react and whether they're concerns or not. Is if you can, is there a particular insurance company that you maybe have experienced with or dealt with that you can say they actually concerned or care about their potential client or their policy holder? Is there anything like that that's out there? Um, that's just coming from an outside perspective. If I was talking to a mechanic and I wanted to know what car company, worked out the best, I would ask. And that's just coming from an outsider's perspective. Is there one that you can say, hey, these guys actually care?
No, I can't. I can't really say with any certainty that any one particular company cares about people and does what's in their best interests. Again, the insurance companies are more focused on being responsible for their shareholders and doing just enough for people not to get sued and no more. Like there's a difference between being stupid versus being educated. There's a difference between being healthy versus being on the verge of a chronic illness. There's a difference between being having restful, replenishing sleep versus the bare minimum that you need to do to get by the next day. Um, if you think about it in terms of abundance, you want to eat good nutritious food. You don't want to just rely on heavily processed sugary convenience foods. So, but that's not that's not the default mechanism well that most people do. They eat whatever they want, they drink whatever they want, they don't get enough sleep, they don't pay attention to exercise and chiropractic care and stress management and hydration, and then they tend to fall apart, and then they have to rely on pharmaceuticals to clean up the mess afterwards. So I'm more of an advocate of doing little things to try to prevent problems from happening. Just, when you buy a car, your car comes with a little book that tells you what you need to do to maintain the car. We're not born with a manual. So we don't really know what to do for ourselves. One of the things for a car is to change the oil every 3 to 5,000 miles so that the engine lasts a long period of time. That's a chunk of metal that you're going to throw away in about 3 to 5 years. So a lot of people prioritize their cars above their health. And in my opinion, your health is the number one most important thing in the entire world. Because if you're dead, you can't enjoy anything.
Right, right. There's there's no recall on that one to figure to figure out what's
No,
going on. To
no,
figure out
there's
what's
not.
going on. It's too late to crash the vehicle to do maintenance. So you made a very valid point, and people come to you to you not only solve these different problems, but make a transitional change. Does that transitional change happen? What are the bigger struggles like mentally into this new lifestyle? Because like you said, we don't come with an instruction manual. We don't really know the direction we're going. A lot of us, I'm even guilty at it at times. A lot of us, go to our peers that aren't going through the situations that we're going through to even relate to find the flow of life. If you want to relate it to nature, fish swim together and then and they learn together. They go to this
Right.
path. We don't do that outside of school, outside, into adulthood. We don't do that because our lives are shaped differently and grow differently. Is there something that you go through that process of the mental development and the physical development and then the nutrition development? Is there, this seems to be like a total, encased, of development that you have going on because you're finding the root problem. What do some of those struggles look like?
Well, to your first part, I read somewhere in a book somewhere that you are the result of the five people that you spend the most time with. So if those people are into going to the gym and working out and eating clean and doing things to take care of themselves. That's what you'll end up doing too. On the other hand, if you hang out with people that are smoking cigarettes and going to the bar all the time and eating at McDonald's 6 days a week, then you'll end up falling into that period too. So you got to be very careful with who you spend time with and who you allow into your headspace because they will have a profound influence on how you turn out. I also believe that good habits build good health. Bad habits build bad health. And so you want to focus on your daily habits. Maybe read a book like Atomic Habits or something like that and talk about what can you do to try to structure your day-to-day life so that you are making time for yourself. You're making time to go outside in the sunshine and play. Go outside and take a walk. Make sure that you're sleeping 6 to 8 to 9 hours of gaining restful, replenishing sleep. You're making sure that you're paying attention to your nutrition. You're paying attention to your hydration. You're paying attention to stress management, whether it's in the form of meditation or journaling or doing just something that to get rid of the spinning plates that are going on in your head all the time. It's very, very important that you pay attention to those little things because they will add up and eventually lead to a chronic health problem. And I'm trying to get the word out as best as I can that it's very, very critically important that you pay attention to those little things so it doesn't end up having costing you a chronic health issue.
You mentioned, the amalgamation and surrounding yourself with the people that, to the best supports you in your development. Um, let's talk about the loner, the person that prefers to be by themselves, or they work isolated, or they've worked remote for so many years, or they've been
Yeah.
in a situation, or the truck driver, the average truck driver that's just on the road constantly by themselves. Um, how would they overcome that obstacle of surrounding themselves with like-minded people and developing in that kind of way?
Well, the loaner and the truck driver clearly are outside of the norm of society. Um, it is more difficult, but they still have the opportunity to educate themselves, and they have the opportunity to do things for themselves that are going to result in better health, better quality habits. They can still read, they can still watch YouTube videos, they can still learn a little bit more about what goes into wellness and health. And I'm just a really, really big proponent of doing little things that end up having big consequences in the positive direction later in life. You don't want to just wait until you develop diabetes to start paying attention to how much pop you're drinking. You don't want to wait until your third heart attack to be careful about how many times you visit a fast food restaurant. You don't want to wait until your pants feel too tight until you start to work out.
Right.
So that's why people go to the gym. That's why people buy organic produce. That's why people are very mindful about certain things in their home, paying attention to like how much formaldehyde am I going to be exposing my family and myself to if I put new carpet in the house, things like that.
Right.
It does add up.
Right. So, Doc, I'm hearing that I should probably throw away the last bag of Doritos. I'm hearing that. Perfectly fine. I'll get rid of them. But yeah, I mean, they're great kindling. They're great fire starters. If you, yeah. But no, it sounds very interesting. And yes, I have worked in the trucking industry, so that was something that resonated with me.
Yeah.
And how the choices feel very limited and you feel trapped in that role. Before I was driving, or in the field of driving, I used to work out all the time. I used to run. I ran cross country, track, did push ups, did the whole thing. And then when I started driving, it's like 16 hours just sitting, and the only food that you got was truck stop food. Fast food. Like it was a tough cycle because the limited time that you had to sleep, you were doing paperwork, and then the time that you were running, you couldn't do one or the other. Um, you're absolutely right, and I think that there's a gap there for something that needs to be done, for those of them, because it's not only does it affect the physical health.
I've had people that worked in trucking and logistics, and I don't think that the average person understands just how hard that lifestyle can often be for some people.
Right.
But there's often ways to overcome that. You can still pack your own food. You can still focus on hydration, drinking water, and taking care of your physical body as best as you can. Obviously, if you're not at a regular type of a job, if you're doing a double, if you're doing 16-hour days, it makes it more challenging.
Right.
But you can overcome it by just prioritizing and saying, look, this is important for me. I value my health. I value my physical health and my mental health, and I need to do certain things that are going to be conducive to achieving my goals. And bottom line is, if it's important enough to you, you'll figure out a way to do it. So I think that that's the thing that affects some people that are really busy, or truckers. If they put in a lot of hours on the road, they gotta find time to do it. It has to be a priority for them.
So, so when people come to you, this is for most of my doctors. When people come to you, they're at their worst.
Yeah.
They're at their worst. They're at their lowest, and it's always a hard position for to be vulnerable. And this is on the receiving end. When you see those situations and you react to them, you know, obviously you got into the game, you got into the experience because something resonated with you to make that change. Would you like to share a little bit about that, or share, what happened in that moment from you?
Sure. Well, the reason that I got into this, I think, is because I like to solve puzzles. I love to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. So when people come to see me, first of all, they've already been to the primary care doctor, they've already been taking the drugs, and for whatever reason, they're not happy with the results. So they want to try something different. Like doing the same thing over and over and then expecting a different outcome is one person's definition of insanity. So they want to try something different. So we start off by having them fill out some intake forms, and just so I understand a little bit more about what their problem is and what's been bothering them and how can I help them, and look at their drug list. And so then I start off by having them fill out some questionnaires. These are like a metabolic questionnaire and a neurotransmitter questionnaire to assess how they're doing as far as their gut health, their liver and gallbladder, their blood sugars, thyroid, adrenals, sex hormones, electrolytes, and pH, all that stuff. And then I have them fill out some questionnaires related to the function of their central nervous system, their brain, and the neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, gamma aminobutyric acid, and acetylcholine that regulate things like your mood and your ability to cope with stress and stuff like that. And then from there, I will say, let's do some foundational lab tests in the form of blood and urinalysis. My blood tests are a lot more comprehensive than you normally get at a primary care physician's office. They will typically order about 10 or 15 different tests. I will order between 60 and 100 different tests. So, because I want to see the entire metabolic landscape and how everything is connected together and where there are stress points and so forth. And um, once I have that information, I make some clinical decisions based on objective lab tests. So I want to measure stuff. I want to do a blood test or a urinalysis and be able to identify what I call triggers, things like they can throw off your physiology. And then from there, that's based on diet, it's based on supplementation, and I incorporate a lot of lifestyle changes as well. And I typically work in blocks of time, whether it's like 3 months or 6 months. It takes at least 3 to 4 weeks to make a major metabolic shift in the body. And so I test, I treat, and then I retest. And I think that that's important so that we can make sure that we're moving the needle, that we're making it a clear and objective positive improvement. And then I'll retest that. I'll retest the positive things and see how far we've gotten. And then we'll have a discussion. Where do you want to go from here? Do you want to continue with this or do you want to try something different? And we'll go from we'll go in that direction.
So we got to the point to where I asked the question, and it's the only question that I definitely repeat is because we want to know a little bit more about you and your background. What keeps you motivated?
I want to do what I can to try to solve problems that no other doctors can solve or too limited. Um, what I do is outside of the insurance, the grip of insurance, but it's still very affordable. It's still very, very affordable for people living on a fixed income to um, people that are lower middle income. They can still afford it. We have all kinds of ways to take care of that. That may be one of the things that it's that people want to ask is how much of this is covered by my insurance? And what how I interpret that is that they're concerned because they fear that this could be quickly spiraling out of control and above their means to take care of this. And for that, I just say it's still very, very affordable. We have a lot of different plans that we can offer with financing, and you can have low monthly payments and get the help that you need without worrying about that. But what to answer your question, what keeps me motivated is just trying to figure out the hidden root causes of what's driving these problems. That is very, very satisfying when I can figure that one out, when I can be the one doc that can solve a problem that's been dogging people for years or decades, where everybody else has given up on them or they've given up on themselves. And I'm just very persistent with my methods.
I greatly appreciate that, and that's also showing the drive and ambition, inspiring those in the medical field that want to do the same and push forward and not accept the first initial cause or the initial reaction. So, Dr. Smith, where can anyone find you if they're in that situation? They're losing hope. They don't understand what's going on. Where can they get a hold of you or they find you? Do you have any social media presence, platforms, websites, anything like that, where they can get in touch with you and possibly pick your brain?
Probably the best way to get a hold of me is to visit my website at metabolicsolutions.net. And if you go to metabolicsolutions.net, I have a free metabolic health assessment. It takes about 2 minutes and it's completely free, and you get results sent to you immediately. So just go to metabolicsolutions.net, and on the toolbar, you'll see there's a quiz called a metabolic health assessment. And it takes about 2 minutes, and you'll get your results sent to your inbox immediately. So that would be the best place to start looking. And you know what? If you have a problem that you really need to ask me about something, I have a contact page on that website as well. And you can send your information ask questions, and I'll get back to you.
That's awesome. Dr. Smith, thank you very much for your time and your insight, your passion, even for the medical field. And I will probably sending a couple of people your way that are in that kind of position right now, to struggling with the diagnosis that they've received. So, with that being said, I want to thank you for that and your time and your continued passion and presence in the field and the industry and helping people on a daily basis, and least of all, being here today, being on my show. So thank you very much for that, and I look forward to having you back.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Doc, be safe. Thank you, guys.
Listen, if this message resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Transformation doesn't happen from watching. It happens from action. If you're ready to level up your mindset, your habits, and your life, I've created something for you. Tap the link below and join my free podcast and community where growth isn't just talked about, it's lived. Surround yourself with people who are building, evolving, and pushing forward. And if you haven't already, subscribe, stay connected, and commit to becoming the strongest version of yourself. This is your moment. Let's grow.
Every day is a blessing. The time we spent together. All we can do is promote change. 24 hours better.